We begin.
This is the beginner color, digital color.
Digital color, Joe Bat's arm.
I give this a 17. Great composition, and I think in this particular case, normally a flat sky like that, it loses points, but in this case, it literally adds to the story. The reflection's nice as well.
Shall we dance?
I'm going to give this a 19. I love the sky behind these two. Besides almost all wildlife images where you have two different animals interacting with each other really adds to this story and the impact of the image. Next.
Flower and buds.
I'm going to give this a 17. On one hand, it's technically quite well done. The whites are not blown out at all. It's a nice composition. It's the square composition is appropriate to the subject. The subject itself is, say, not as interesting as the birds we previously saw. It's a much tamer image. Next.
Here I am.
I'm going to give this a 17. Lovely wildlife image. I really think the cropping needs to be improved here. All those ferns down in the lower right certainly don't add anything to the story. I wouldn't want to say a perfectly square crop around the subject itself. Rectangle is fine, but really too much at the bottom. Next.
The wench.
I'm going to give this a 19. As portraits go, this really jumps off the screen at me. It's Peter Sharper's attack. She's separated from the background by reason of the color. The hairdo and the eyes are great. And the costume adds to the interest of the image. Next.
New emerged sulfur.
I'm going to give this a 17. It's technically well done, but I find the image a little distracting. And when it first popped up, I had to really get in close up and kind of study it to see what it was all about. I think it's a little bit soft right at the butterfly's head. Actually, it just popped in. It's a little bit better at the moment. But I guess it's that yellow. I guess it's a yellow leaf there. It just kind of merges with the yellow subject. I find that disturbing. Next.
Cables.
I'm going to give this a 16. It's way, way too busy for me. When my eyes look at this image, I don't know where to look. They swing from right to left with those red cables on top and then back across the main bridge here. I've seen a number, it's an iconic landmark, great subject matter, but just too busy. Next.
African greeting.
I'm going to give this an 18. I would have given it more points had it had an interesting sky. And the main problem with this image is it's great posing. I mean, just to find the situation is wonderful. But unfortunately, the light is on the wrong side of the subject. It's backlit, and all of the texture and the detail inside the ears and all of the eyes are quite dark and flat. Next.
Behind the veil.
I'm going to give this a 19. Wonderful wildlife image. The feathers all puffed up there in season. The sky is subdued. The subject matter being white against a dark background comes right out at you, and it's just enough clearance for the eye to pop through the feathers there. Nice. Next.
Down the straightaway.
I'm going to give this an 18. Very nice, tilted over like that. And the fact that you can see the eyes at such a distance. Obviously, he was shooting not only motorcycles, but the subject of speed. And because of the tilt of this motorcycle, it tells that story. Next.
Plumeria display.
I'm going to give this a 16. It's a little bit soft to me, particularly along the bottom edge of that main pedal that's in the middle bottom. The background's handled quite nicely and being dark, a light subject against a dark background, and there's nothing distracting in the background. But as an exciting image goes, this lacks a little wow factor. Next.
Sarasota colors.
I'm going to give this an 18. Actually, it's a very busy image. Nonetheless, it's exciting. It actually causes your eye to go into this image and look around at all the details. There's a lot of excitement going on, people walking and pushing carriages, and you take a look down that hall, it draws your eye in. Now, I know the maker left that top on because of the artwork on the top of the building there, but this would make a good image even if it were cropped down 20 or 30% from the top. Very nice. Next.
Tailspin.
Oh, I'm going to give this an 18 just on creativity. Quite nice. It's interesting because of the rope there, or tied to the kite, I guess, or that white and black object in there. It's just a leading line and causes you to follow it right to the subject matter. Just enough detail in the sky so it's not blank. Next.
Sunflowers.
I'm going to give this a 17. Technically, very well done. I could see this is fine art. I could see this image printed large, framed up on a nice mat, hanging in a hotel lobby or someplace, even an art museum. However, it's basically a pattern, and as photography goes, when you display a pattern, your eye goes into the pattern, looks around, your eye really never comes to rest on a particular part of the subject. And that's the downside of patterns. Very well done. Next.
Hello there.
I'm going to give this a 16. It's certainly an interesting subject, and it's looking right at you. I think the highlights right on the nose are a little hot, and there wasn't quite enough depth of field on those leaves to give you a sharp edge. And a little bit of, well, there's not really a merge between the leaves and the subject, but the similar colors detract, I think, from this a little bit. Next.
Paris icon.
I'm going to give this an 18. Very nice. I mean, we don't particularly see them, but it's a landmark, and you see a lot of pictures of the landmark. This is a very well done one. The sky is clean. The subject matter is sharp as a tack itself, and it's cropped to perfection. Next.
On alert.
I'm going to give this a 17. Good catch, good wildlife catch. The background at the upper half is quite clean. It's a little disturbing that we have these branches in front here that cover up some of the animal, but by and large, a nice clean shot. Next.
Biker's lament.
I'm going to give this a 17. On one hand, it's an interesting portrait. On the other, I'm very disturbed that we don't have more facial contact or eye contact with a portrait subject like this. It has some storytelling power, although I don't quite know what the story is here. And I think it would capture you visually more if you were able to see the subject's face, which I would take a guess has a lot of character to it. Next.
Beyond Trinity.
I'm going to give this a 16. You know, here in Florida, we see a lot of sunsets, and but the only redeeming feature of this one is that little reflection in that tide pool here, right along the bottom edge. But basically, it's a lot of negative space here, and your eye wanders around a little bit looking for a rowboat or a buoy or something, something to focus your eye on other than the sun itself. Also, it seems to be a little bit grainy. Next.
In case it rains.
Going to give this a 16. But I think the value in this image is the pattern and the colors. It captures you. The subject matter makes for a leading line, and your eyes go to the top of the image when it pops up, and you follow it right down to the bottom, and you start looking for what's beyond these umbrellas. Art-wise, almost fine art, very interesting, and mounted and printed and hung in the right place. This would generate a lot of visual interest. Next.
Kazan.
I'm going to give this a 17. Handled very well. It got a little artsy flavor to this whole thing. It's a great perspective. The lack of a tourist walking around adds to the image. Could easily be in a travel brochure or on a postcard, and printed large and hung in the right place. Wonderful image. Next.
Lover's Spat.
I'm going to give this a 19. Now, interestingly enough, like the elephants, these subject matters here, these birds were backlit. However, in this particular case, the maker was able to lighten the eyes and create a focal point for you to look at. That, as everyone knows, when you're looking at wildlife or people, eyes are the first place that you take a look at. Had these eyes been dark, I think it would have scored much lower. Nice clean background, and the fact that they're interacting with one another and have great poses helps a lot as well. Next.
Blue Heron Succeeds.
I'm going to give this a 19. Wonderful capture, action, you froze the water. We got the fish, and we have the eyes of the fish, which are very helpful to storytelling in this image. The bird has great detail in the feathers and nice color, very pleasing. Next.
Black-necked Stilt.
Going to give this an 18. Wonderful composition, technically well done. Sufficient space left on the left side here for the bird to walk into, and it was caught in a very interesting pose. Next.
Silhouette on Fire.
I'm going to give this a 19. A very exciting image. A little bit of light painting. It's a wonderful technique, and the silhouette really adds to this image. Next.
Eagle Fight.
I'm going to go with 18 on this one. It's super exciting wildlife scene here. Great capture in terms of timing, and as many Florida eagles as I've seen, I've never seen anything this exciting. I think, unfortunately, the background is a little too bright. In fact, almost making it difficult to see with the contrast here, any of the feather detail in this bird to the left. But you can see both eyes. Boy, the moment that shutter click was just so correct. Next.
Dutch Park Entertainer.
I'm going to give this a 17. I think as street portraits go, the item I miss most in this is eye contact. You're just not sure what he's looking at. He's distracted, and that white sky doesn't help this image at all. Next.
Waiting for a Fish.
I'm going to give this a 16. It's a nice clean image without anything, we have no distracting elements except for maybe that light spot in the very top in the middle and a couple of pieces of grass to the top right. But we see this image all the time. It's just lack of excitement. This is a perfect example of an image that would work in a textbook, with Great Blue Heron titled under it. Technically, it's okay, just not exciting enough. Next.
Cowbird Portrait.
Well, I'm going to give this a 19. Although I might have gone a little higher if it were cropped a little bit from the left and the right. I think this is almost a vertical. It's clean, it's soft, it has very pleasing color to it. If a highlight in the eye, even though the light is coming from behind the bird, essentially, a pleasing subject. This image has a lot going for it. Next.
We move on to creative category. Cocoa in colors.
I'm going to give this a 15. I find it very difficult to look at with that white background. And it certainly is creative, but just too bright and difficult to discern the subject when it initially pops up. Next.
The cascade.
I'm going to give this a 19. This is beautiful. This could easily be printed large, matted, framed. You know, can you picture it with printed 20 by 30 on a white mat with a thin black frame hanging in the lobby of a modern office building. It's beautiful, well handled. Next.
Forest demon.
I'm going to give this a 20. I love it. It's abstract. You can see the eyes. You got a highlight in the eye. There's no question where your eyes go when this image pops up. Soft, nice, soft background. Looks like it was handled perhaps with a panning. Could have been done in Photoshop. Nonetheless, it's very intriguing and forces your eye to go into this image. Next.
Flamingo fantasy.
I'm going to go with a 16 on this. For those of you who know who my own work, I tend to make fantasy images. This is a little too cartoonish for me. Next.
Personal space violation.
I'll give this another 20. This is wonderful. Handled very well. The lightings from behind show all the feather detail on the wings. Not the graffiti, but the grunge on the street light is just right, and the background makes it super interesting. Next.
Contemplating the arcane.
I'm going to give this a 16. I find it, this image popped up, and my eyes went really stretched here to see what the subject was. And the subject, being that right in the center there, is so small. It occupies such a small portion of the entire frame that it's very difficult to see the subject. The redeeming part of this image is the leading line with the floor reflecting the way it does with the leading lines. Those triangles, rectangles lead you right in, but the subject is too small in the frame. Next.
Smoking colors.
I'm going to give this a 15. It's very pretty, but there's difficult to identify the subject initially, and other than the randomness of the pattern, I don't think this has much going for it. Next.
Rebecca's smoky demise.
Boy, I'm going to give this a 20. Wonderfully handled. The lighting on the subject just as a portrait is very nice, and then to have it go into a gradient into that smoky background is just makes it super interesting. If I had anything to say about this, on the negative side is I don't particularly care for images that aren't grounded, and to some degree I could see it being critiqued as a floating head. Regardless, we're in the creative category, and this deserves the score. Next.
This is
Pretty
Scott.
in pink.
This is just a reminder for those of you watching, please mute your microphones except for Bernie and Craig. You can mute your mic by clicking on the icon in the lower left-hand corner. Thanks a lot.
I'm going to award this 15 points. Just, yeah, too soft and abstract. And being essentially, I have two subjects here. Maybe if you had three, you could keep your eyes on the subject. But when you have an image with two subjects, your eye tends to play ping pong. First, look at the flower on the bottom, then you look at the top, then you go back to the bottom, back to the top, and just a little too faded for me. Next.
Bulldogging.
I'm going to give this an 18. Wonderful image. If you're going to, it's a great way, using the background like this, to take out crowds in a stadium and focus your eyes on the story that you want to tell. And this has an exciting storyline, an interesting subject matter. It's coming right at you. The hat in the air denotes action. This is a great image. Next.
Dead of Night.
I'm going to give this a 15. This is a super leading line, right? It pops up. Your eyes go to the left side and it follows the leading line. And when you get to the end, there's nothing to look at. Just pretty flat. Next.
Kite's Revenge.
All right. I'm going to give this an 18. Handled very well. First of all, you have the background and 3 layers, basically the sky, the water, and the sand. Yeah, very nice. And the configuration of the kite. And now you have an interaction with a person. Handled very well. Great storytelling power. Very interesting. Next.
Floating Dancer.
I'm going to give this a 19. Wonderful reflection. It was a super reflection. Adds to the image. The colors really pop out here. The red suit, the subject, the girl herself, being light against a black background. Great pose and composition on this one. Next.
Experiencing Freedom.
Going to give this a 15. First, we have a damaged subject here. You notice it's, I think technically it's called a swallowtail. You're missing a piece of the tail, so we have a damaged image. That highlight dead center in the center of the image is a little too much. And butterflies are a tough subject to start with because often that they're not exciting and interesting. Nice, I'd say, nice try by the maker. They got the right idea. Needs to be a little sharper. Next.
Sailing to Key West.
I'm going to go with a 16 here. I find the horizon line under that separates the moon from the water to be exceptionally too sharp. And as a composition goes, it's just too square. Well, the image is not square, it's a rectangular image, but just no pattern here at all other than to look at the moon. Next.
Experiencing, whoops, sorry.
No.
Arcade reflections.
I'm going to go with a 17 here. It is on one hand, it's a very, very busy image, but I think in the creative category, the maker had a good effort here. I like the excitement of this image and the fact that it tells a story. You know what's going on. The reflection of the lights up on the roof and the lights from the machinery reflecting off this arcade game. The colors make it an exciting image. Next.
Wolf Ghost.
I'm going to give this one a 16. There was a somewhat similar image earlier where we had a girl in the woods that I thought was really exceptional. I think in this particular case, this is similar, but the wolf being the subject is way too small in the image. And the blurriness of the trees, which would normally add to this kind of image, is overdone. Next.
Beach color.
I'm going to give this a 15. Technically, it's a great exposure, and the fact that we have depth of field go soft into the background is quite nice. The subject matter is somewhat of a mystery, and I don't see any storytelling power with this. Also, that black object off the end of the branch here, whatever it is very distracting. Next.
Switchback.
I'm going to give this a 17. Actually, very interesting handling of this bird, and I like the stroke on this image as well. It's abstract, yet it's real. Fine art. Boy, another one that you could easily mat against a white mat, thin black frame, hanging in printed 20 by 30 at least, hanging in the atrium of a modern office building. Really eye catcher. Next.
Faith and the Butterfly.
I'm going to give this a 17. Great storytelling power. In this particular case, the subject not looking at you, but you can see it's looking at the butterfly, which is the story. And I think it was handled quite well. A little bit cropping on the left, maybe, but I could see a calendar full of these. Next.
Oh, documentary. Sorry.
Hmm.
I'm sleeping here.
Yeah.
Hitching a Ride.
I'm going to give this a 17. I think the highlights in the bird's head are a little bit too bright. Got great storytelling power, cropped very nicely, and it's an interesting subject. Next.
Colorful farmer's market.
I'm going to give this a 17. Well done. Great example of street photography. Now here, none of the subjects are looking at you. You're not engaged with them, but it adds to the storytelling power. You can see commerce is going on and you're all interested. And the fact that the maker caught subject matter that was just colorful enough. The oranges along the bottom, orange fruit there, I think that's called star fruit, somewhat complements the building on the left. Your eye stays inside the image. I'm not sure that individual walking over on the left side, if he was necessary to be in the image though. So I guess it's a small cropping issue. Next.
Hats off for this effort.
I'm going to give this a 16. Certainly an interesting subject matter. I wish you'd backed up a little bit so that I had more of the horse and a little bit more on the left side. I think the cropping where they cropped off the probably cowboy boots took a little bit away from this image. The expression by the shooter is great though. Next.
Early morning jog.
I'm going to give this a 16. We see a lot of sunsets. Now here's a sunset that has something to look at besides the sunset itself. Excuse me. The person walking along and the maker being able to catch the bird at the right moment really added to this image. Next.
5, 6, 7 seconds.
We're going to give this a 16. Very, very interesting and good capture. To some degree, it's unfortunate that I think that the clown was there blocking the animal's head. But boy, he certainly caught the actual moment of action. Next.
This is not vanilla.
This is a
It's
16.
chocolate.
Yeah. This is a 16. Lighting was, for a night shot, the lighting is handled very excellent. Everybody's sharp. We have depth of field. And the image itself, when it comes up, it forces you to look inside the shop to see what's going on, and you have all the detail you need inside. Next.
Extreme acrobatics.
I'm going to give this a 17. Obviously, a nice clean background. We had a shutter speed high enough to just about stop the rotor blades, and has a lot of strong storytelling power here. Next.
A friendly discussion.
I'm going to give this a 19. Beautiful, well handled. The lighting, obviously, off from the left side coming in, so it lights the one bird's head totally. We have a highlight in both eyes. The subject is sharp. It's clean. The only item I find a little disturbing in this is the background to the left, upper left there. That must be a tree stump or something. But other than that, it's a clean shot. Technically well done. Look at the detail in the feathers, the chest feathers, if you will, of that bird on the left. Very nice. Next.
Jimmy Buffett's bird.
I'm going to give this a 15. This image could go in any travel brochure. It's sharp. It's well done. You can see the texture in that denim coat the young lady's wearing. The bird is a little bit dark, and I think that while the subject matter has storytelling power, it's almost, I would love to have this in my family album, being myself or somebody I knew, but it's a pretty common story. Next.
Early morning dredging operation.
I'm going to give this an 18. It's actually quite an interesting shot, and I have to say the cropping is almost correct. This is a panoramic, and I could do with a little bit less on the top, a little bit less on the bottom, but yeah, we have detail aboard the entire ship. I love it. Next.
Follow the leader.
And this was properly cropped for the subject. I would guess there is nothing above the image or below the image that would add to this story. Yes. And I'm looking at this, your eyes basically go from left to right, which is typically how we read. And I would give this, if I have it scored, I would give it a 17.
Bottom feeding.
I'm going to give this a 16. Interesting to catch two of them in this position at the same time. I think the composition is a little bit lacking with both of these dead in the center and nothing else to look at. Initially, if you didn't listen to the title, you'd say, "What am I looking at?" Next.
Failure to watch is 6.
I'm going to give this a 15. Much too much grain in the sky for me, and the fact that you actually don't see the main subject being the bird here on the left. The fact that you don't see his expression or his eyes just takes so much away from this image. Next.
Things are looking up, ready to go home. Hello?
Yeah, loading up. There we go. Now this one I'm going to give a 16 to. It has much more storytelling power than the previous image, but it's still very, very grainy. The subject's interesting, but way, way too grainy. Next.
Roller boulder.
I'm going to give this a 16. Subject's interesting. Got a little action going here with the roller blades, which I would be flat on. You'd have an image of me laying flat on the concrete. But needs a little bit of cropping. I think those vehicles, certainly that white van pulling out of the frame in the background is very disturbing. And we could have used a wide open lens here, have that background go a little bit softer, and to have the subject itself, which is the girl skating, larger in the frame too. Next.
Duval Street.
Going to give this a 15. I think the subject itself is a little bit too soft for my liking. Next.
That's going to leave a mark.
I'm going to give this one an 18. This is an exciting image. Also caught, there was a previous rodeo image that was caught well time-wise, and this one is also excellently caught. And the dirt flying and the ropes on his clothing flying in the air just says action, action, action. This one's well done. Next. No distracting crowds in the background. Clean.
It's called Where Am I?
I'm going to give this an 18. Actually, this very interesting subject matter. I would say a sidewalk artist with chalk. The abstractness of the faces she's drawn on either the wall or the ground. Very nice against her pink bandana, and storytelling as well at the same time, with the chalk in her hand and having the artist in the image. Next.
Digital mono. Star of a silver screen.
I'm going to give this a 19. As portraits go, the lighting is wonderful. It's sharp, and I mean, it's a classic portrait, especially with that fur coat. It could be right out of the 1930s. Lovely.
Pensive Anna.
I'm going to give this a 19 also. This is quite well done. I love the lighting, the expression on the model's face. Just enough background to make the image interesting as well. Next.
Second driveway in Florida. I'm
going to give this a 15. It's I find it very, very busy and confusing to look at. Next.
No pain, no gain.
I'm going to give this an 18. Lovely, huh? Has storytelling power. When you see this, you just think, oh, what's going to happen next? This person is going to go riding down this ramp. It's got an interesting artistic effect to it. The expression on the model's face is great. A lot going for this image. Next.
Schooner head.
I'm going to give this a 17. A little bit like fine art. The subject itself, the building on the island out there, is a little bit small in the frame, but it's just a lovely landscape. Quite tame. Next.
Enjoying the water.
I'm going to give this a 16. The reflection is quite nice. Technically, it's well handled. I like the crop. Not exciting like the rodeo rider coming off of the bull. Much more of a tame image, a little subtle. The one thing that adds to this image quite much is the water movement under his legs there. Next.
Illinois State Capitol.
Going to give this a 16. Very nicely done architectural shot. The archway creates a pattern, draws your eye in because you have the arch to the rear, which draws your eye out into the image. But you look for detail back there, and there's not much to look at in there. Next.
Christian Science Center.
I'm going to give this an 18. Done quite well, especially with the reflecting pool there. I know the territory, by the way. Nice night shot. Next.
Pizza Man.
Going to give this a 17. Being able to see into the oven and the flames, that's where your eye is drawn, actually, really makes for storytelling power. This image could actually slightly be improved, I think, with a little tighter crop, taking it off of the bottom, up into the middle of his shirt someplace, getting in closer. Next.
Grooming Pair.
We're going to give this a 17. I suspect the original image probably had very dark heads, and the maker burned this in significantly, and you can actually see the halo in the sky around the heads. They did some burning and dodging to get the detail, which he did successfully, come out. Nice feather detail, though. Next.
Storm on the Horizon.
Tell me, Acadia National Park in Maine, maybe. Caught it quite well. I like the long exposure with the ocean waves there being blurred in the foreground. Very nice seascape. See, did I score this?
No.
No, well, we're going to give it an 18. It's lovely.
Quiet Night in the Circle.
I'm going to give this a 16. I don't think the exposure is wrong here or something. The whites aren't white, and we have a lot of gray. I used to get this effect when I burn things in too much, but even the lit areas are not white. Even the light bulb's not white. And a little bit too much black sky. Almost have the horizon across the middle of this image. Next.
Simple Pleasures.
I'm going to give this a 15. Just technically done well enough, although I think the whites are a little bit hot and has a leading line, but your eyes just never stop. You have no subject to stop your eyes on here. Next.
Light Tower.
I'm going to give this a 19. A very interesting monochrome. I presume the bird was put in there. I don't really know, but handled quite well. The lighting is from the left side, and it's underneath the bird's wings where it should be. Contrast is high, but that's really adds to the image. Next.
Visit to Fogo Island.
I'm going to give this a 19. Very nice architectural shot. This building makes for an interesting subject. and it contrasts so much with the background, the landscape that it sits on. And the maker was lucky enough to catch a good sky. Next.
Dutch Park Entertainment.
We're going to go with a 14 on this. We've seen this image prior in color, and putting it in black and white does not add to this image. Unlike the color version I saw, his face here is quite dark, and the sky being almost white makes it difficult to see the subject's face, and simply does not add to the story at all. Next.
Fancy.
I'm going to give this a 19. Done quite well. When you handle an image, a subject like this with all these fine feathers, and you go with a dark background, it almost makes it look like the image was shot in a studio, although I'm confident it wasn't, especially with that bushes in the bottom. But the subject's interesting, and it took a good pose for the maker. Next.
Bayfront Park in infrared.
I'm going to give this an 18. Very nice. The tree is dominant here, in spite of, it's in the background, but it's dominant, and being light in color against that sculpture, which is dark, really helps. I like this very much. Next.
Mount Vestahorn.
I'm going to give this a 20 for landscape. Beautiful handling. Whoever decided to do this in monochrome made a wise decision. Having depth of field from the very front all the way back to the mountain and the sky, it's wonderful. I like the way it's cropped. The terrain is interesting enough that your eye goes into this image and explores it and ends up in the mountain in the background. Lovely. Next.
Stretch of sand.
I'm going to give this a 17. The maker certainly tried here, and looks a little bit distorted, like it might have been done with a wide angle, although I don't know for fact. And having the subject bend over like that and do his exercises has storytelling power and makes it interesting. But I think all that debris and the sand, the rocks and the flotsam and jetsam, whatever's on the beach there, is very distracting. You almost have two images, one on the right and one on the left. Yeah. Next.
Ripples at Rest.
Oh, we're going to give this a 19. Lovely. Huh? Perfect reflection. Great subject. It has mood. And it's really nice as a monochrome.